About a year ago, I had the opportunity to interview David Gilmour in New York City at the end of his last tour. After that, we kept in touch, and he told me next time I'm in the UK, if I'd like, we could set up a longer interview at his studio. And about 2 weeks ago, I went to the UK, and we did a second interview. Before we get to it, don't forget to hit subscribe. David, how are you?
Rick, nice to see you.
Good to see you again.
I'm good.
You were just playing the guitar a second ago, and I was remarking, I noticed this the last time you played an A chord, and I learned this, that you play 2 strings with 1 finger. Your index finger or your middle finger, you cover 2 strings. Now, were you always able to do this? Because I never noticed, every time I looked at videos of you playing, that I never noticed this.
I honestly cannot tell you the moment. I mean, there must have been a difficult chord at some point in my life that required, you know, more fingers than I had.
Right.
And so that 1 finger, particularly that one, doubles up on 2 quite a lot of the time,
But it actually makes it easier to grab things. It leaves other fingers open to do other things.
It's so automatic, I haven't got a clue what I do or how it happens. But as you point out, when we pick the guitar up, it does show all those things, and I've got lazy ways of doing the C's and D's, and you know, with the grip bar thing.
One of the songs that we talked about briefly was the song "Dogs."
After a while, you can work on points for style, like a club tie.
That has such an unusual chord progression. How do you come up with that?
I had a tune that I sort of was mucking about with, even I think in the 60s. And the band called it Difficult Dave. And it was basically sorry, we're in the wrong key here because this is tuned down, which is a chord, I don't know, I must have picked it up from somewhere, which is a E minor with a 7th and a 9.
And just to point out that you're doing the thing that I was just talking about, the 2 notes there on the A and D string you're playing with your index finger.
How would I do it like that? That's much harder.
Yes, which is why when I try to play that, it's really hard to grab that first chord. And I was thinking, like, how does David grab that first chord so easily? This explains it.
Okay, well then we have a clue. That the detectives in us can work out that that must have been quite common. That's with the index finger, not even with the second. So 1977, I was doing that.
You were doing that. But what explains the rest of the chord progression that it goes?
That was 1 chord that I'd used in something, and I can't remember much about it. And I remember we did a session in the Capitol Tower studio in LA, in Hollywood. And we tried that out, and I haven't got a tape of whatever we did, but I think it must have had more than 3 very, very basic chords, and the band called it Difficult Dave. So that's where the first chord originated. Where I got it from, I have no idea. And the second one was a C. I'm not going to. In my mind, that is an E and this is a C, although we are tuned down.
You're tuned down. We'll pretend it's in standard.
And that's just a C with an F in it.
C sus4.
C sus4 to me. And then a B, 9th, 4th, sus4, B9, sus4. I mean, like other people, notably Pete Townsend, you know, we're often looking for a way of moving a chord but leaving a note clinging in there.
Which is beautiful.
I remember thinking at the time, I was trying to get a strumming thing a bit like Nights in White Satin, believe it or not.
Nights in white satin, never reaching the end.
Believe it or not, I can now listen to it, I can't see any connection whatsoever, but I remember thinking that.
Now, we were playing that, did the other guys say, wow, that's really strange but cool?
I think we just got our own studio at Britannia Row in Islington. And I came in with that sequence and just must have started strumming it. There's a thing that happens when you go into a room and you have something, and you think it's got something to it. but it's very hard to know whether it's rubbish or whether it's interesting. So, you know, you sit and do this strumming, or you sit and do what we went through before.
Yeah.
Those sort of things.
Yeah.
Or all those things are things that, you know, there were moments in the studio I'd have these things and I'd start doing it, and, you know, after a minute or a few seconds, you just see little ears pricking up and eyes, and you think, yeah, maybe this has got something, and they all sort of move on from there.
Now, Rick is playing the same voicings on the keyboards throughout the song, and so he must have thought, wow, that's really weird.
Yeah, he never said that, but or not that I remember.
Would it be a thing like, what are you playing there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I would explain in my, you know, incompetent musical language, verbally, how they're made up. Yeah.
Would you say that that song is a progressive rock song? Did you guys even talk about style back then?
No, we didn't talk about style, and I've never talked about progressive rock or thought that we were whatever progressive rock is.
Like, what is that, right?
Well, I mean, to me, progressive rock is you know, very, very serious players who can really do their stuff. The wonderful Steve Howe, you know, lovely guy, lovely guitar player. But I'd never thought of us in those terms at all.
People used to say, though, oh, Pink Floyd is kind of they're a progressive rock band. And I thought, yeah, interesting. They're progressive in that they have some songs like Dogs that are really unusual chord progressions, and they have songs that are in odd time signatures.
Yeah.
And they have songs that are really have long arrangements.
Yeah, but I think we were doing it long before the term progressive rock.
That's right.
And I think I was probably a grumpy old man in my 20s, you know, sort of, nah, that's not us, you know. And the whole idea of labeling, it's become more essential in this day and age, but I'm not keen on it.
There are no David Gilmour clones out there as far as your solo playing. Mm-hmm. You can't mimic what you do as a guitar soloist.
That's completely accidental, and I'm very happy about it, because it has made something that's sort of unique but is accidental. I don't know how it comes about. The best one I heard was, I spotted one on YouTube, and I didn't write down who it was, but it was a girl of about 13, and she was knocking through comfortably numb. I was thinking, not half bad, actually.
Is it that you can't copy someone's melodic sense? Is that what it is?
Everyone's fingers are different, you know, and you have your muscle memory, the things you do, and you have your inherent musical taste that's leading you to the next place you're going, and it's inexplicable, and everyone is different. Some are more different than others.
The way that you leave space between phrases, once again, is that something that you always did?
When I very first started in this band, we were doing Syd's songs.
Yeah.
So I was having to do Syd's guitar parts, but we were also making our first album that I was on, Source Full of Secrets, and obviously allowing myself to spread out a little bit. But it's a very, very gradual process of unfinding other people and finding yourself a little bit within what you do.
You had told me just before we started about getting your first...
A fuzz face, yeah.
That someone just gave it to you.
Yeah. We were on tour in the States. I think we were in Seattle in, 1968, and we were on the same bill with a band called Blue Cheer.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder what I'm gonna do. Lord, there ain't no cure for the summertime blues.
Nice guys they seemed to be. Anyway, the guitar player came up and gave me a fuzz face. And which I used for years and years and years.
And you said, okay,
Thank you.
thanks. And then you tried it out and you thought,
Yeah.
oh.
Yeah. I mean, I did have a fuzz box before that my parents had given me, funnily enough, because they lived in New York when I was living with my little band in Paris. And for my 21st birthday, they sent me a white telly.
Okay.
Very nice, thank you. And a fuzz box. I've still got it somewhere.
David, nobody's parents send them a fuzz box. That's so cool.
Maybe I asked them for a fuzz box. I don't really. That's a long
That seems like
time
kind
ago.
of that seems like a really unique and a cool gift,
Yeah.
for a birthday present.
Yeah. I've still got that fuzz box somewhere. I don't know if it's here. No, probably not. I mean, it's shit.
Okay, so back in the late 60s, early 70s, the kind of a search for more sustain. There was always kind of this thing.
Yeah.
Did you consciously think to yourself, man, I wish I had more sustain because I want to...
Well, as soon as Jimi Hendrix came along,
Yeah.
I did. I thought,
Right.
Yes, Jimmy, I want a slice of that.
Okay, let's talk about Hendrix and about his influence, because so many people I've interviewed talk about seeing Jimi Hendrix and what an influence that was.
I used to, when I was living in London and I was completely broke, and this is long before I joined Pink Floyd, there was a club in South Kensington called Blazes, and if you were a member of that club, and it cost £5 or something to be a member, you could go free from Monday to Thursday or Tuesday to Thursday. So I'd go there quite a lot because it was free. And one night I went in there and it was rammed with people. All the Beatles and all the Stones were in there. And I go, it's a little bit unusual. And Brian Auger and the Trinity with Julie Driscoll, and she sang that This Wheel's on Fire. Anyway, they did a set and they were always great, Great organ player, Brian Auger. And at some point, they stopped. A kid came in with a guitar case, got up on the stage, opened his guitar case and put it on the wrong way round, like that. Plugged into an amp and started, and the entire place was just jaws dropped. It was absolutely extraordinary. I went out the next day trying to find records by this character, Jimi Hendrix, and there was James Hendrix of Hendrix, Lambert and Ross, and he didn't exist.
So he used fuzz. I mean, it was
But
very
on
limited.
that occasion, he wasn't using fuzz. I mean, he just must have had a Marshall amp in there ready for him or something. And, a lot of those people, Eric and Jeff and people worked out ways of driving an amp in a certain way that could get you the same sort of effect. I think there were people who drove a second Marshall amp out of a first Marshall amp out of the speaker outputs and back into another amp, which sounds dangerous.
It sounds dangerous,
Yeah.
right? Around that time period, they started coming out with distortion pedals. You had treble boosts, treble booster pedals, things like that, and then you had the fuzz face.
Yeah.
Of course, obviously, the gain from the amp or the volume from the amp
Yeah.
can sustain a note.
Yeah, well, you can't manage without quite a bit of volume. There's no way of actually replacing what the actual volume gives you. You can overdrive as hard as you like, turn your master volume down and your input levels right up and get it roaring, but you still got to whack it up a bit.
How loud was the volume when you track records back with Pink Floyd? Would you crank your amp really loudly? Would they be isolated?
Yeah, they'd be pretty loud, and guitar solos would probably be done, after the track was done.
Yeah.
And you can let go a little more if you're the only one in the room that's playing.
Would you play your solos out in the room with headphones on so you could get natural sustain?
Yeah. The idea of recording in the control room out through wires and stuff hadn't really
Caught on yet. You played me your high-strung guitar out there. I'd heard you talk about that was one of the inspirations for Comfortably Numb.
Well, it's my friend Willie Wilson was the drummer in the Sutherland Brothers and Quiver. And they were recording an album at Abbey Road with Bruce Welch from The Shadows producing. And Willie came round one night and was telling me about how it was all going great, And I said, fantastic. And he said, and Bruce wanted us to double track an acoustic guitar with one which only had high strings on it. And my ears sort of pricked up. I thought, what do you mean? What do you mean? He said, yes. I think he called it high-strung tuning. But Willie is a drummer, so he wouldn't really have known how the guitar was tuned or what strings were on it. So I thought I would try that out. And with a little bit of experimenting, I came up with what I use, where the top 2 strings are the same, the 3rd string, the G string, is up an octave, the next 2 are all up an octave too, and the bottom E is 2 octaves up.
Yeah.
And I started playing around with that and finding my lazy style, as I've described to you before, leaving fingers off. You know, you can play a D, an open D chord on an acoustic guitar. You don't hit that bottom string, or you damp it with your thumb, or you do something. You don't want that big low E.
It sounds muddy. It sounds bad with the chord.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But do it with this high-strung tuning, and you've got a second note just ringing naturally within the chord. I started thinking, yeah, I'll play the C chord with only 2 fingers, without the D note, the E note in it rather.
So this is the high-strung guitar, David.
This is the high-strung. We start with a top E, standard, top B, I mean not top B, but the B, standard. Then the G, D and A are all up an octave.
Yep.
And the bottom E string is up 2 octaves, so it's the same as the top string.
Now, on a regular Nashville tuned guitar,
yeah.
just to be clear,
Yeah.
that would be down just the low string would be down 1 octave. This
An
is
octave below that, yeah.
That's right, octave
Yeah.
above that,
Yeah.
which actually puts it in the range of the high E string then, and gives you that beautiful 9th. Okay, so the part then in Comfortably Numb,
Yeah.
with the open low string then.
Yeah, there's a retuning of yourself that you have to do, you know, because your natural thing, if you play a D on an acoustic, you're going to do like that, because you don't want that big booming bottom to be ringing in on your D chord. But when you get this tuning, you soon realize that you can do that, and you just have to learn a slightly unusual way of strumming, which is the full strum all the way down, and you're not emphasizing as much. And then the C with a D in the middle, 2 strings.
That's beautiful. When you have something like that, a sound, a chord progression that has a dissonant note in it or something like that, do you start getting ideas then for melodies?
Yeah, you get an idea of where melodies might go from strumming that chord, just that one D chord. It's, on the record of that one, there's Michael Kamen said, you know, he could hear that going dee 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 dee.
The moving line.
So the moving line on the strings, he said, was inspired by
what you're playing.
Because you've got all those notes.
Yes.
And so yeah, they suggest those chords, and those chords on that particular tuning do suggest melodies.
Speaking of that, about the moving line.
There is no pain, you are receding. A distant ship, smoke on the horizon. You are only coming through in waves. Your lips move, but I can't hear what you're saying. When I was a child,
That moving line, it makes it so beautiful along with the melody.
Yeah.
When that section, when the chorus starts, you hear that high string guitar just introduces
Introducing
it.
Yeah, yeah.
There's I want to say a demo that I found online of you singing just a wordless vocal on that.
Yeah. It's pretty much the same melody, isn't it?
It's exactly the same melody. when you sang that wordless melody.
I also sang a melody with words because I had written some words.
Okay.
They got dumped along the way. No, I was at our Britannia Row studios, and Bob Ezrin said, well, what he says every time, what else have you got? Come on, play me everything, anything, Don't judge yourself before you play things. Play everything. So
Yeah.
that was something I played, and he said, we got to do that.
Did you play it just with the wordless vocal?
Yeah, just with, I think so, yeah.
Yeah. How do you go from that melody to finding things that go along with the melody? Like, how do you think about it?
We're working on Roger's project.
Yes.
The Wall,
Yes, that's
his thing.
That's right.
And Bob wants this thing to get in there. And
Yeah.
Roger seems to like it okay.
Yeah.
And so we sit around and play with it to try and move it forward. Roger said, do you mind if we change the descending line from E, starting on an E,
Yeah.
D, C to A, to starting on a B? It's identical, but it's in a different key.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe he thought it sang better for him or something, I don't know. And then at the end of the chorus, he said, I've got another line I want to put on here. So I need 4 more bars. Can you find me 4 more bars? And I have become comfortably numb line. I stole from another bit of that tune in the descending line, in fact, the C down to A, and reversed it.
That tagline of where the hook of the chorus is really, it's so triumphant sounding that it comes back to that.
Yeah.
When you go into your first solo in that, now everyone talks about the end solo, which I love, but the first solo is beautiful. What was your process on that? Was this something that you just sang?
Bob Ezrin says I knocked it off in one take.
Okay.
That solo, not the end one. There's been lots of arguments about that. I have no memory of it. All I know is that the bits of the song were months apart. And that solo, the way we were recording a lot of The Wall was to have a TIAC 4-track machine with 1/4-inch tape. And that would have a click track and a rough demo and bits and pieces on it.
Okay.
And there'd be people say 1, 2, 3, so to guide you into the next section of songs, and that's so that Nick could have a click and everyone could. That was the method. So we'd have a TIAC 4-track machine playing, and that would be playing out through headphones to people, and it would also be being recorded on the 16 or 24 track, whatever we were using at that particular moment. So that 4-track sort of demo had all the important parts of the song tacked onto it, and that always had that first solo on it.
Okay. Wow.
I know that solo is a very early thing, and I don't think it changed at all.
Wow. Did you think to yourself, oh, that's a good solo? Or do you not even think about that? To you, right?
I don't really think about that.
Right.
I thought, that sounds nice.
That works.
That's cool, that'll do.
Honestly, it's kind of absurd to think these things are just created and then they're there forever.
They're a moment, and the moment is often very accidental. Sometimes the moment isn't accidental. Sometimes you work for ages. Yeah. And you're incrementally moving a solo on, and you're saying maybe that line, and you take it out and you put another one in, and you do another take, and even in those days we were doing more than one take, and then just plugging that track into another track, dropping it in, and there could be a lot of stuff. But that particular first solo in Company Number pretty much was a one-off thing, I think.
Now, when you start the solo. Okay,
Okay.
So-
Not bad.
How much is it that you're using vibrato and how much is it the bar? I always wondered how much this changed in your playing over time.
I have no idea how that happens. I do know that when I get onto telly or
Yeah.
something without a wang bar,
Yeah.
I'm fine too.
Yeah.
And I can, the vibratos are still my vibrato, but, Hank Marvin in the Shadows always, used the tremolo arm, and I liked to think that I refined it a lot and took it down to almost inaudible. When you have, a delay or something
Yeah.
on a guitar, so there's a good long, very positive delay. Doesn't sound really wet,
Yeah.
but if I go, then suddenly you're in a huge chamber.
Amazing.
And that's the effect of a little bit of delay with
Yes.
using. So, but how that all developed, I can't work that out. They work together, hopefully in perfect cohesion.
Some of the notes, it seems like you play what we call a pinch harmonic.
Yes, I do that quite a lot. I try to stop myself doing it too much because it's a bit corny, really.
Yes.
First couple of notes of the end solo of Comfortably Numb.
That's right.
And I don't get it every time.
Playing pinch harmonics like that. Is that something you always did?
I suspect it must have happened accidentally at first.
And you thought, oh, that sounds cool.
Yeah. I do hold the pick in a sort of clumsy. I see people playing with a pick properly like that, but I'm sort of mine's almost as much
Almost
finger
nothing,
and thumb.
yeah.
So I don't even notice when I do it some of the time.
Sometimes when I watch your playing, it looks almost like you're playing with your fingers. And
Yeah.
I guess sometimes you are playing with your fingers.
Occasionally, I
Yeah.
never feel as confident. I haven't spent the years of hard practice that Jeff Beck and people and Mark Knopfler have done to be able to do that stuff so well.
Okay, so the end solo of Comfortably Numb.
Yeah.
You always change that a little bit, but you started out similarly. Do you feel like the audience expects to hear at least the high points and the intro of it?
I'm not thinking about the audience
Okay.
and what they want, to be honest.
Okay.
I just like it starting the way it starts, and the rest of it is sort of so ingrained in me that the various parts of it are going to find their way into what I'm doing. But I've never learnt it.
Yeah.
I've never learnt that guitar solo. I mean, there are a lot of guys who can play that solo, but I can't play it. Right. Not like that. I mean, to me, it's just different every time. I mean, why would I want to do it the same? Would it be more popular with the people listening if I did it exactly like the record, or do they prefer that I just wander off into whatever feels like the right thing at the time? I don't know. I suspect they prefer it to be real and to be happening, as I do it. There are cues within it which I use to tell the band we're going to end or we're going to do this, and so they crop up as being the same every time, pretty much. But
The first solo is very anthemic. It's major. It's very regal. But the outro solo has this brooding sound because it's in B minor and it's dark. It also has an uplifting feel, which is it's hard to pull those two things off.
I hope you're right. It's more luck than anything else. And the other thing about it is what we've discussed before is that if you just get yourself in the B minor position and play, everything fits over all the chords.
Yeah. Last time that we talked about Shine On, about the chord.
Yeah.
And you said, well, it's actually more like an arpeggio.
Yeah.
But the sound for that, do you remember what you were using on that?
Could easily have been the what's it called? Not the Phase 90.
Univibe?
Yeah, the Univibe.
Yeah.
I think probably there might well have been a Univibe. I was trying to get a big but clean sound like it in a huge room. And we in fact recorded that for the record in number 1 at Abbey Road.
Okay.
When on a day when there was no one in there, I said, can we set up an amp and do that in there?
Wait, so the guitar part was recorded in number 1?
Those da 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 da.
Okay, you have to tell people how big. I've been to Abbey Road number 1. How massive of a room it is. It's huge.
It is vast. It's got
Yes.
a 7-second reverb.
Yeah.
Naturally of its own. It's an orchestral room. It's, if you want to do 150 players in a room all playing together, that's where you go. It's just, it's a lovely, lovely room. Number 2 is pretty
Number
damn
2
big.
is huge.
It's a big.
I mean, it's a massive room also. When people see pictures of the Beatles, they're always in one little corner and they think it's kind of a small room, but no, it's an enormously big
there.
room.
And yeah, number 1, when they built that complex, the studios, when they built number 1, they went down 20 feet. So from the outside, the building
looks
doesn't
small.
look that high.
Right.
But that's because the room's down there somewhere.
Okay, so that explains it. Because when I looked at the front of the building when I walked in, and it was just a couple years ago I went in there, and I was like, where's the studios? This place looks tiny. And then you walk in, it's I walked in Studio 1 first, and I was like, this is enormous. And then Studio 2 was enormous too. And I was like, oh my God.
And 3 was quite big at one point, but all sorts of things changed in 3, lots of different configurations. But it's a bit smaller, but it's still quite a sizable
3 is a
room.
good sized room too, yes. So you recorded in that room. Would you guys use distant miking for things like that? Or how would you do things?
God knows.
You didn't even pay attention to stuff like that, did you?
I'm in the room with the guitar trying to make the sound in the room sound just right.
Yeah.
Which, in my mind, anyway, I never quite got. It's never quite somehow. I mean, it's so ingrained in me and you and everyone else the way it is.
Yeah.
I guess
You can't imagine
I
any
can't
other way.
imagine anymore what my criticism of myself and the sound was. But I wouldn't have been worrying about. I mean, when you're at Abbey Road, where the Beatles have done all their stuff, and Thomas Beecham has done all his recording. You think those guys know what they're doing,
Right.
You don't need to follow everything they do that carefully.
I interviewed Alan Parsons, and I have a plot of the studio that the Abbey Road gave me, and it says AP on there, and it was from Dark Side.
Yeah.
And I said, is that your handwriting? And he said, yes. He told me that he got on the session just because he requested to be on it, because he was such a fan of you guys, and he's like, I want to be on that session.
Yeah.
And he literally was just put on because of that.
You can't quite imagine the way recording was in those days.
Talk about that.
Well, they would, you'd have one engineer one day and another guy another day. Peter Bound, lovely guy, Alan. But I think we were gradually moving forward, and by the time we got to doing Dark Side, Alan was given the thing for the whole album. But there'd be strange people wandering in and out doing different things all the time.
And you didn't even care, right? So it's like, whatever.
And in the really old days, a lot of the tech engineers would have a white coat.
Okay, so that's really was a thing.
With a pocket here, and they would have a pair of brass scissors in their pocket to do tape editing before they had editing blocks.
Wow.
And they would just line 2 pieces of tape up on their knee or whatever and go at an angle and join it back together, and off you go. And so all the tape edits before the late 60s would have been at slightly different angles.
Interesting.
So, later with the editing that one used to do, you didn't want a little gap across the tape where the sticky stuff would be hitting the heads or anything like that. So, yeah, it was a different world.
So how
Very
much
more
tape?
primitive in some ways, but when I say it was primitive, the actual quality of the recording onto 4-track tape, 1-inch tape, so 1/4-inch great big thick tracks each track, and the microphones, the quality of the basic recording that you could do hasn't really been improved.
No.
The mics are no better. I mean, the mics they made back then in the 30s and 40s, Neumanns and things, they're still unbeatable.
Yeah.
And the sound you get from a 4-track tape machine, Beatles did the whole of Sgt. Pepper on 2 4-tracks, and there were times when we were doing things when you'd be trying to sync things together, and you'd literally have one machine and another machine, and you go bang on both start buttons and do a little bit, and then they'd wander out.
And then you start in a new place then?
Yeah. Do drop-ins and things. The first album that we had a synchronization method for was The Wall, 79, you know, and we had a system before the later SMPTE things. This was called Maglink.
Okay, but it was similar to SMPTE,
It was similar to SMPTE, but was massively unreliable.
Right.
Half the time we'd start this, and one tape would start, and you'd be watching the other machine, it'd be shaking and shivering, and then gradually it'd go, and your point would come, and they still hadn't got into sync yet. Oh. You'd have to stop it and start it again.
How much tape editing did you guys do on the records like Dark Side? Would you do mixes in sections, stuff like that, and edit them
mix the
together?
Songs,
yes,
and then we'd play the first one of the 2 songs, have a point where we'd press the button to start the second one, and we might have some tape effects on another tape, and you'd press that at the right moment, and all of that would be copying onto another 2-track machine, and then at the last downbeat of the first song, you'd edit there, and you'd edit on the first downbeat of the next song and put the whole join section, the cross-section piece would be edited in. And that was every track on Dark Side of the Moon.
Right, because you had all those sound effects and things that connected the songs. Was that stuff tedious or was it fun?
It was both. I liked it. I liked doing that stuff. I was pretty neat at it.
It's fun trying to, I mean, all the trial and error part of it. It's like, oh, can we get, oh no, that wasn't quite right. Let's back it up again. We'll try it again. And when you started the Wish You Were Here record, very different. Dark Side was such a massively big record, right? And you must have had this feeling like, okay, so how do we top that?
Yeah, the idea of topping something was never something that that consciously came into my thinking. I just every time think, let's do the best thing we can do. Obviously, you can beat yourself up about being as good as whatever you've done, then you're in trouble for life.
Right.
But when we did Wish You Were Here, we were in number 3 at Abbey Road, and they had a whole new desk and a whole new setup, and we had a whole new engineer, Brian Humphreys, and there were all sorts of teething problems with the studio.
First of all, why Abbey Road? Why did you go there?
We started at Abbey Road. I mean, they were using Abbey Road. They were signed to EMI before I joined. First thing I took part in was sessions. I must have been in January '68, and that was at Abbey Road. It was all Abbey Road. We had arguments with the people at Abbey Road about moving forward, progressing, and there were 8-track machines that people were using around the world. And
in the States, right? They were using 8-track machines, but they were using 4 tracks back at Abbey Road. Is that right?
Yeah, we're still using 4 tracks back at Abbey Road.
Okay.
And the 8 tracks were also 1-inch tape. So in terms of absolute quality, not that I can tell the difference at all, but you're getting half as much tape.
Yeah.
For each track.
Yeah. Was that not up to the standards of the engineers there? Is that why they didn't want to?
I do know that we had a meeting at Abbey Road sometime, 72 or something, I guess, 71, where they said, we're going to upgrade the whole studio. We're going to change all the 4 tracks for 8 tracks. And I had just heard that there was something called a 16-track. And I said, how about we jump that phase and go straight to 16-track?
My God.
And they said, oh, it's too new technology. I don't think we can go there. So they stripped the whole place out, all the rooms, put 8 tracks in, and within a year, they had to go back and strip it out again.
Oh my God.
And go 16 and 24. Luckily for EMI, they had EMI Paris, EMI Delhi, in EMI India, lots of other EMI studios. So all those 8 tracks weren't wasted.
Right.
They went off and spent a few years, God knows where around the world.
Now, you guys were real hi-fi. Like this was like a big thing of Pink Floyd. You've always had incredibly great sounding PA systems and things like that. It's really an experience. This is something that's really important to you personally.
It's just logic.
Yeah.
It's just absolute. You want the experience for the audience to be the best it can be, and the better the PA system. Someone will offer you a PA at half the price, but that's such short-term thinking, in my view, and I've seen it done. Cutting corners is not was never our thing or my thing. Do the best you can possibly do, and hopefully the money and those things will take care of themselves in the long term.
In the long term. Okay, so on Breathe, there's it seems like there's a lot of space, but there's a lot of things going on.
Yeah. You can hear the univibe on that.
Yes. In the beginning, you have the univibe with your guitar. It sounds like that Rick is playing a Rhodes or something like that. And then I guess it would be lap steel came in.
Yeah.
But it sounds like 2 tracks of it. Is it possible there's 2 tracks maybe?
Quite possible. I mean,
okay, so there's no organ. Organ enters a little bit later.
Yeah.
Did you talk about things like we don't want the mix to get too crowded, the arrangement?
You just work on it till it starts sounding right. And
Yeah.
I mean, when you're going to get to that chorus, you want that slight boost of a Hammond to come in. I cannot remember how the process worked.
But at a certain point, though, when you're tracking this, there's a basic track that happens, right? And the basic track would be everyone playing together, and you probably playing the univibe part, right? The basic rhythm guitar part.
It would have been at that point, I guess, all 4 of us playing that thing.
Would that typically be how the basic tracks would be done?
Not always. I mean, by the time when we first did Shine On You Crazy Diamond, we recorded it as one piece, however joined together before it was separated. And I can remember that was very difficult, took a lot of rehearsing, and it was just Roger and Nick, bass and drums. And when we got to the end of one, we finally got a take, and we went, I think that's the one. And we played it back and said, Brian, take that echo off there a little bit, and he couldn't. And we'd recorded. I told you it was a new desk, a whole new system, a whole new desk, and somehow the reverb returns were going onto the drum tracks.
Oh my God!
So a moment of frustration there, where we got the technicalities of that sorted out. Didn't take too long, but then we had to do another whole take, and it was like 20 minutes long or something. I can't remember exactly.
So sometimes it would be, you'd have basic tracks. Sometimes it would be things that were done maybe with bass and drums, and then you would start overdubbing on that.
I can't remember the reasoning for why that had to be like that. I think most of the ones on Dark Side were sort of more, or pretty much all of us doing a basic track.
Okay, let's fast forward to when things like Pro Tools started happening. Explain to people how easy things are now compared to then, David.
Well, you can use Pro Tools as a tape machine, and I do. I don't use MIDI or any of those things with it. I just record it. But in the old days, I used to have 24-track tape machines at home now. A reel of 24-track tape. You got to get this great thing out. You got to put it through the tape heads. You've got to know what you're doing. You have to have it very regularly lined up because, you know, if that tape and the heads, when they come together, if they're a millimetre out, the sound goes to shit.
Yes.
So there's a lot of that technology stuff. And if you've got a home studio, which I have had with 24-track, it's a nightmare. And these things just get in the way of the work. You know, you want to create. And so the easiest thing, and I mean, Pro Tools still wasn't around.
We're talking about something, Pro Tools like probably since 2000 or so.
About 2000, something like that. And I fell in love with it immediately.
Yeah.
I had got rid of the 24 tracks because it was a nightmare. And I think I'd gone to something called ADAT.
Oh, yeah.
And that was also a nightmare. Mm-hmm. You want every obstacle to you putting music onto something and then listening to it back removed. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. And
when Pro Tools came along, I just loved Pro Tools. There was a lot of argument, still is, about the sound quality of things like Pro Tools. When we started, I think probably my first proper thing I did on Pro Tools was my On an Island album. And I think that was 48K was the maximum in those days.
Yep.
Went up to 96 and up to 192. I don't know if anyone uses 192.
I don't think so.
I think 96 is pretty much the standard these days, and I just love that.
Would records have been different had you had that technology?
Well, you know, the idea of the struggle is, you know, does art come out of the process of struggling? Or, I mean, the samples and stuff, you know, you can use now. You just whack things in. But you used to have to create sounds and fly them into moments that individually on the wall there's marching footsteps, marching army walking along, and I dropped each one of those in thing with waiting for a tape to the right moment in the tape and then dropping in play and hoping you'd be in sync, and spending hours and hours and hours getting all those marching things to march properly all the way through. I did that. It took forever. Took forever.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's pros and cons to all this stuff. But the Pro Tools thing.
Yes. Yeah.
In 2006, we were recording drum tracks with Andy Newmark for that album, On an Island, at Mark Knopfler's studio in West London. And we decided to do a test where we recorded the drums and to both Pro Tools and to tape. Now, the air on drums and cymbals is a very, very hard. They're hard waveforms.
Yes.
To get down and have sounding beautiful and perfect. So we did some of that, and I had, they were in sync. We played them back. I had a switch hidden under my hand and was A-Being with Andy Jackson, other engineers and people all listening, saying, couldn't tell the difference. Just couldn't. And that was a great moment for me. That said, screw all that tape shit. I'm out of there.
So, David, I've seen you play drums on video, and you play drums. You're a great drummer.
I'm a very poor drummer. I have good ideas for drums, but my timing is wrong.
You can get around a drum kit and play through a tune.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that like kind of a thing that being in bands, you'd have your drums set up and you go sit down, just mess around till the drummer got there?
Mess around and swap around. When we were doing our barn jams in 2007, we had a day or a few hours where we all swapped instruments. No one was allowed to play their own instrument. Nothing came of that, of course. But I love playing all the instruments. You know, I love to be able to get by on all that stuff. And sometimes there'd be a drum rhythm that I picked up from God knows where, and I'd sort of have to learn it a little bit to say to Nick, could we try this, a different thing? And so those sort of things would happen, all the time.
How involved would you be, or would other people other than Nick be in saying, hey, I think the drum part should be this, or what do you think about this, about not playing a kick here or something like that? I mean, do you guys talk individually about individual parts a lot?
Yeah, all the time,
Yeah.
on everything,
Yeah.
on every instrument. Nick didn't need telling very much, to be honest.
Yeah.
He had his own thing and he did it. He, in the 60s, with the very early Pink Floyd, he was very much busier, but he gradually got a bit simpler with it. But there were things, there's on Comfortably Numb, there's a place where there's a bass drum missing. And I said, can you just not play that bass drum? I want that gap. And that was my thing. I wanted that gap. So, yeah, little things like that. Of course, if you're writing music, it's in your head and you have very clear ideas often of exactly what you want and you don't want. And every one of us would be making suggestions more or less forcefully, given the moment and what the idea and what the dream was.
I always ask everybody this question. How do you know when a song is done? Is it when the record comes out?
Pretty much, yes. Pretty much. No, you think, you listen to it through and a mix or a quite good rough mix and think, yeah, there's nothing more to do on this.
Do you like to bring rough mixes home of songs after?
Always.
Okay.
I've always done that, yeah.
Will you take notes on it and go back in then the next day or whatever and say, hey, why don't we try this?
Well, since the Division Bell, my wife, partner Polly, has been a producer on everything that I've done by exactly that process.
Yeah.
By me taking tapes home and playing them, and we both listen and talk, and she will make pretty brilliant suggestions a lot of the time.
When she's going to write lyrics on something,
Yeah.
how far along is a song typically?
It'll be quite a long way down the line.
Okay. Another brick in the wall, the guitar solo. You used to play your Gold Top
Yeah.
Les Paul, which you auctioned off for charity.
Yeah.
But you have another beautiful guitar behind you that's
Yeah.
a 55, is it? It's got
You would have to check with Phil what
but
year
it's got
it is.
P90s on it.
Yeah, well, the other one was identical to this.
Yes.
P90s. It didn't. I don't think it had a Bigsby on it though.
What do you like about P90s versus playing single coil, like a Strat or something?
Is a P90 single coil?
It is single coil.
It is
yes.
single coil, but it's a big, thick thing. It's sort of like a bit of a halfway house between that and a single coil regular and a humbucker. And I'm just not very used to humbuckers. I haven't used them very much. I used it more on this tour than probably a first. I don't think I've ever used one on stage before.
Okay, what is the difference between playing a Strat and a Les Paul?
With a Strat, you need a bit of help to get some real grunge and power going through with pedals and things like that. It's a very clean, pure instrument. But as I say, you need some help. But it emphasizes the person playing it, in my view. Strat players, you can recognize. You can say, I know who that is, exactly, playing that on a Strat. And you can get a bunch of Les Paul playing, and you're going, that could be, or is it? It attaches itself to personality better, I think, a Strat. So, and as you know, I haven't used Les Pauls an awful lot, but this one, the P91, which I used for Another Brick in the Wall, and I'm using more these days. I'm on a couple of tracks on this last album.
Usually,
It's
David,
fun.
people stop using the Les Pauls because they get heavy and they're like, oh, go to the lighter guitar there. How do you decide about the position of your pickup selector and things like that?
It decides for itself. You just ask it the question, say, where should I stick this switch? And it'll tell you.
I like that. I like that. On Run Like Hell, there's some guitar effects on there they sound like stereo effects, but I don't know. Did you use flangers back then or anything like that?
I think so, yeah. I think we had the Electric Mistress.
Yeah.
I suspect it's Electric Mistress and delay.
It's like a triplet delay, basically.
Yeah.
Would you have used this particular MXR there, you think, or not?
Yeah, it would have been an MXR.
Yeah.
On the wall shows I had, we all had those MXRs, and there's a jack socket in the back, which you can run with a DC battery with a knob on it, and we had wires going to everyone's MXRs on stage so that I could control all their delays, so that we could have all the delays for a song like this in sync.
Wow. Okay.
Except that it was very unreliable.
Of course.
And you
David, that's a common theme today. It's like talking about this stuff. It was very unreliable.
It's hard to imagine today. Today you just go, I want 1,000, I want 750, and it's done.
So I will say this: MXR is made in my hometown of Rochester, New York.
Yeah.
That's where they
They're
started
great.
out. Okay, so this particular eighth note delay is like a triplet delay.
Yeah.
Are you guys even playing with clicks back then at this point?
You can't do this with a click.
Right.
I defy anyone to do that with a click.
So
I made this thing up on a thing like this in our studio at Britannia Row.
Okay.
Probably in '78, I think. Probably about when I was making my first solo album, I think. But we'd used this same trick before on echoes.
Yes.
And I got it originally, that whole idea, from trying to imitate the chopping cellos on Good Vibrations.
Nice. Okay.
He's going.
Yeah.
I was trying to get a sound like that, like making them very tight and even by tracking them with the delay. And that's where that whole thing came from.
Okay, so when you were playing that, you just played it for a second. The when it comes to
I'm rusty.
When it comes to the high parts,
Yeah.
the high chords on there, this is what I was talking about before about the flanger.
Yeah.
It sounds like that's an overdub with like a flanger. It's not an overdub. It's,
all
part
one,
of the same thing.
One part. In theory, the regen is supposed to keep those notes going behind the thing, so it sounds like it's overdubbed, but it's. You have to be playing a lot to get that perfect.
That's beautiful. The with the regeneration on there.
Yeah.
When they started coming out with these kind of digital effects, things like this.
This is analogy digital, isn't it? I don't know quite what this one is.
Those kind of sounds there. Beautiful.
So that's doing a little sweep on it,
Yeah.
which is doing exactly the same as the wang bar
Yes.
on a regular delay does.
Yeah.
Hear it going up and down in pitch
Yes.
slightly. It's on the slowest possible speed.
Now, when you started getting these kind of units, when they started coming out with those, was that something that you were like, oh, I can write stuff with this? This is really...
I wasn't really.
Okay.
But I mean, it all started
with the Benson.
with the heroic
Okay,
Benson.
let's talk about the Benson.
It started with the Binson, and I was playing with these sort of rhythms and sounds on stage at sound checks, probably in the late 60s, but I never quite found where to use it until echoes.
We were talking earlier about the Benson before we even started.
Yeah.
You said that they were used on vocals at first.
They were Italian, and I first saw them with crooner bands, and they would have the vocals going through just to give a little bit of life and echo, because there were no reverb machines really. All of those things, the other ones, all the machines that did that thing, they all came out. I mean, there were 2 or 3 different Italian ones that came out at more or less.
Why
the same
Italian? I always wondered that. It seems so strange. When did you actually start using it with a guitar?
Well, I think Syd was using it with a guitar, and I already had one.
Okay.
When Syd was using it, but I was using one with my band on vocals, because we did. I had a band that did big harmony vocals, Beach Boys and Four Seasons and all that sort of stuff was what we were quite keen on, and they always sounded better with a bit of that reverb on. So that's what I was using for, and then Syd was using it on the guitar and doing weird effects, and I sort of picked it up from him.
They're very hard to actually emulate that because of the spinning drum on it. You told a story about coming to the United States, and because of the way the power is different, that this
the British electricity system, is 240 volts and is 50 cycles, so it's 50 pulses per second. And in America, it's down to 110. It was 110 back then.
And 60 cycles.
And 60 cycles. Now, that drum is controlled by the cycles of the electricity. So if we went to America, the speed of your delay for things like, for example, One of These Days, Roger would be slapping couldn't do it. So
did it occur to you guys then what it was?
Well, yeah. I mean, we knew what the reasoning for it was, but
like, how do you fix it?
What do you fix it? There was no other thing that we had that you could do it with. So we got a drill out and drilled through the metal plate on the top of it and took a head off and moved it along and screwed it back in.
Oh my God!
And readjusted it, very, very fine adjustments, till it moved that certain amount of distance. We had to do some mathematics to work out exactly how far we wanted to move it along, because it's, 50 to 60 is 15, 12, 13, 14%, I don't know.
You probably were a little nervous when you were drilling through it, right? Like, I don't want to screw this up.
Well, I think Peter Watts did the drilling, and so I could moan at him if he got it wrong.
If you were soloing using that, what would be the setting that you would use?
Oh, I would probably just go to the regular repeat, pull the level down, go from there. Okay, so here's the old MXR. This is a 70s device, I think.
Yep.
And that's 383. Turn that off and go to the Binson. So that as you can hear, that's a bit faster.
Now, the Benson has a little bit of distortion in it. It's tube, I think, right?
It's tube. You've got these things here. This is the feedback or regeneration.
Yep.
And this is the input control. And balancing the input and the output is a very delicate thing, because the output is very noisy.
Wow, okay.
Trying to record things with that, So you've got to take that back and then take this up. But if you take that up too far, you can see on there's the levels, and they come in from both sides like this. And if they cross, you're distorting.
Okay.
So, see there?
Yes.
That's, so you've got to be very careful with those knobs.
Okay, so
that's a constant adjusting microscopically of those things for every different tune you used using the Binson.
Okay, so live back then, would you have have it set up where the Binson was on a switch? How would you turn it on and off to use it?
It had a wire that came out of it to its own foot switch.
Okay, and it was actually Binson made a foot switch for it to turn it on and off. When you had it for your vocal group, would you just turn it on for certain sections, or would you leave it on?
I think you just leave it on.
Okay,
but subtle.
If you're playing a solo and you have that on, and you're in a big, huge room and you're playing through that, and you're cranking the amp, what's the feeling like? It's got to feel amazing.
It is amazing. Yeah, there's a lot of constant nursing of this sort of old gear, much more than you have to do today. Like I say, that input control on the Binson, if you stomp in a mega pedal,
Yeah.
it's just going to, and the Binson is going to be, so you're constantly whipping this thing up and down and fiddling. They've got to be in reach. It's much less flexible than the modern gear.
What distortion pedals did you have? A tube driver you've been using for a long time.
Tube drivers I like very much.
Tell me why you like those.
Because they are basically just like overdriving an amp a little bit, whereas a proper fuzz box is clipping off the top ends of frequencies. It's a different sort of thing. So I like these, and you can be playing that and be going okay, pretty loud. And if you want an extra whole whack into it, you stomp onto a compressor. And I have the compressor before the thing,
My next question.
which is not the norm. I believe that most people have the compressor after it. But
When did you start using compressor pedals?
as soon as one came out.
Like the MXR compressor,
Yeah.
that compressor.
Yeah.
That was really one of the first ones that
Yeah.
came out.
Yeah.
And was that kind of a revelation for you, having that?
I think we used, obviously in the studio we use them all the time.
Yeah.
But live, I don't think it was that much of a revelation at first, but I gradually found out more of the things it could do. And you could boost your overdrive and how long it lasts for, your sustain, by just whacking in a compressor. And the compressor will be then driving the distortion to an extent that it... So you could have more than one compressor and use different ones for different purposes, and they have them set differently.
Is there anything secret in here, David, that you don't want people to see, or no?
Can't tell you. Or if I did, I'd have to kill you.
That guitar.
Ever seen that one before?
Yes, we were talking about this, Phil and I were.
It's got a neck you can bend.
It's got that weird...
It's the neck and the body are one piece of mahogany.
Okay, and it has that weird thing on the back, the pad.
The pad that with all the workings inside.
That's amazing.
The pickups are humbucker and single coil. See? Switch from single coil to humbucker.
Oh my God.
On either pickup. And these pots have got a rubberized thing around, so if you're doing volume and things like that, it's smooth as, it's beautiful. It's made by a guy called Bill Lewis, who lived on Vancouver Island, I think. And he made this for me. And the great thing is it's got two
octaves.
Two full octaves.
Yeah. Why did people come up with 24 fret guitars in the past? Like, why did it take so long for people to do that?
I don't know.
It seems like such a logical thing.
I used to get Charvel necks on Fenders, and the Charvel neck would have an overhang that would go all the way to that pickup with an extra 2 frets on it.
You have a bunch of different amps here. You have a high watt setup over here. You have Fenders. You've got the Alessandro. Talk about your amp setup over the years. Back in the early 70s, what were you using?
High watts.
High watts. Combos like this?
No, 4x12s with a 50 watt amp top or a 100 watt amp top. I used to have the normal and the brilliant inputs connected together.
Did you have it with a cable, or did you actually have it modded?
I think originally we just did a cable from one to the other.
Yeah.
And you could turn up the normal volume, and if you wanted a bit more brightness, you turn the other one up. It seemed to work.
David, who thought of doing that, bridging the channels like that? Was that just something that people started doing?
I have no idea.
I always wondered that.
I mean, I think I asked for it at some point because I found that the brilliant channel had the top, but was a little thin. And the normal one was missing a tiny bit of brightness. So I guess I just said, can we just, I think you could just get a regular, any old jack. They used to have 2 inputs for each thing. And now that one seems to have only 3 inputs. Anyway.
Okay, so high watts, anybody who's played high watts, I have a couple high watt amps.
Yeah.
They have a special oomph.
Yeah, they've got some real power.
And unlike anything.
Very clean.
Yes.
And you've got to really force them by whacking the input levels up high and then taking the master level down.
Is that pretty much what you do a lot of the time with your high watts back then?
Yeah, but I think I now use a high watt hand and Alessandro or something. A combination of amps I use these days. But yeah, you want to just be able to whack in and turn it up and get it moving and get so you can lean back on it. And it holds you up.
I said to you the last time that we talked that I noticed on the show at the in LA, in the first song, you went over and you adjusted your amp.
Yeah.
It's so unusual to see somebody adjust their own amp.
Yeah.
You obviously wanted something you heard differently, probably
Yeah.
from Soundcheck.
Yeah. There were moments where something got switched off, or sort of, there's one moment where one amp actually wasn't on that should have been.
Okay.
For some reason. And I would have just gone and turned them up a little bit or something. But just fairly basic sort of moves on the amps. The amps are set. If there's anything to be done, you'd do it at soundcheck. I wouldn't be fiddling with the tonally or the main gains very much.
What do people not know about playing live and the interaction of the sound of a room when it's empty and you're doing sound check versus when people are in it, filling it up?
There's most spaces, the sound changes quite radically, and that's mostly a job for the guys running the PA and the front of house sound. And I guess they have their tricks
Right.
to deal with that. But
Are these things that you notice on stage or not really?
I mean, you notice the difference on stage between an empty and a full room. But half the time when you're playing sound check, you haven't even got the PA on.
Right.
Not all the time.
Yeah.
So you have to be fairly adaptable.
What do you look for in players that you play with in your bands over time?
Oh, gosh. People that I can get on with and who have a natural affinity for what you're doing and who are brave enough to give things a go, and if I tell them to pull it back a little bit afterwards, they're happy, flexible and brilliant, which all of the guys on this last tour were.
The vibe of the person is important, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
People have to be able to hang.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of good luck in that. These guys all seemed to be really nice people, but half of them I'd only ever met in a studio for not that long.
When I was watching the film from the live tour, these guys are all pros. I know a lot of them, the guys in your band, and the focus that they have playing together and never hitting bad notes or anything like that.
Yeah,
and we try not to do that.
We try not to do it, but we don't worry too much if we do. I mean, I do a few every night.
But these guys that you're playing
pros,
with, they're pros.
They're professional and they're artistic. They have that lovely combination of being exploring, seeking artistic people as well as knowing that they've got to stick to within certain parameters.
Are there people that over the years that you've thought to yourself, boy, I'd love to work with them, and then and maybe that you haven't?
Well, Greg
Fillinganes.
I when we were touring in 1987, I guess, doing the Momentary Lapse of Reason tour, and Michael Jackson was out at exactly the same time as us, and we would often be in hotels in the same towns, and I got to know Greg just through after hours meetings, and later I really liked him. Later on, we were in the States and we went to a Michael show, and Greg, in a gap between songs, played one of our riffs, a Pink Floyd riff, to say hi. I thought, I hope Michael doesn't mind.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, so I took the opportunity 10 years ago to give him a ring and say, how do you fancy coming and doing a leg of a tour with me? And that was great.
I just saw Greg a couple weeks ago. He was in Atlanta, and then seeing him on the film there, and he's just one of those guys that he can cover any part, and he's so present, and he never plays a bad note. No. But the focus to do that, to be able to do that, that's what gets people gigs like that, I guess, right? But the hang is kind of as important, right?
Well, getting to know them and all these people and spending some time with them personally is, of course, part of it. I don't have hard and fast rule or explanation for how these people come to be part of it. But they're there and they're great.
Wish You Were Here, the song.
Yeah.
I've heard you talk about it, about coming up with that initial riff on it.
Funnily enough, I can remember quite clearly. I mean, I must have been playing it at home, and I just bought a 12-string Martin off a friend of mine, and that just fell out of it. And I was sitting on a chair or a sofa in number 3 at Abbey Road and started playing that. And like I said earlier, you know, there's a moment, and ears prick up, and you just notice, and you know you got something good going on. And we started talking about it and doing it, and Roger and I went out in the big room with 2 guitars and wrote the chord sequence together for the verses. And he went off and wrote the words. It was, I mean, I can't say it was easy for him to write the words, but the whole process musically wasn't difficult.
When I hear it, I've known it my whole life, and it seems like these songs have always existed.
Funnily enough, that is, to me, I thought that at the time about that thing. I thought, have I stolen this from somewhere? But no one has sensibly come up with anything that actually makes sense of that. So I'm still claiming it as mine, yeah.
When you play these songs now, these songs that you've known now for most of your life, and you go out and play them with your current band, is it like a song that you're not even associated with?
No, you can't get rid of the association. I mean, it's very much, to me, my song. And I feel that every time we're playing it.
I had said to you earlier about singing in the same keys. This really blew me away, because I go see a lot of concerts, and pretty much almost every single song, except for one that we were talking about, you sing in the original keys.
Yeah.
That's very unusual.
I guess, yeah.
Trust me, it's very unusual. It's not. And some of these songs are high to sing.
Yeah, I still have more or less the same range. I'm glad I'm not doing On the Turning Away anymore, because that has a high G, which you keep. And that one is a bitch. But
if you were to describe you, would you say that you're a tenor or a baritone?
I would imagine that I'm not a baritone.
Yeah, I think
What would you think?
I think you're a tenor, like a G. You know, singing a G comfortably is like a tenor.
Yeah, that's
Some
right.
things like that.
That's the right at the top of my thing, and I can hit it okay for one note, but if you're staying there, things get harder.
What about voicings? I just played Breathe, and talk about that voice in that E minor with the 9 in there, right?
Yeah.
You play these voicings like that. Are these just things that you kind of messed around with and you came up with them, or did you?
I can't remember having a thought process.
Yeah, it's just so
I
you're
think
like, oh, that sounds good,
yeah,
right?
That sounds nice. This note would be nice. I'll just slide that bar to there and see. Yeah.
You use a lot of dissonances in your writing, suspensions and things like that.
I'd like to keep things interesting, and you know, I write tunes, and I think that's quite a nice, pretty tune. But I think it's not so interesting, not so different, and I'm constantly discarding pieces of music that I just think are too ordinary or too like other things. Great Day for Freedom and other things, and you know, or Shine On You Crazy Time with the arpeggio. Those sort of slightly different things which you happen across by accident, those are the things I relish.
Okay, this is a tough question, but what makes a great melody?
One that people can't help singing, becomes an earworm and drives them mad, I suppose.
So for the last 3 days, I can't stop singing the guitar part to Shine On, just the intro chord. For some reason, that is just stuck in my head, and it's driving me crazy.
Sorry.
And
Sorry, Rick.
And it's such an unusual chord. We talked about it before, but I've never heard it in anything else, nor had I ever stumbled upon it in playing, and all the guitar playing I've done. I've never stumbled upon it.
How
Did you
does
just put
those
your
things
fingers
happen?
there, and it just came out?
That is all I can remember. I just put my fingers somewhere. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe I was trying to do a fret lower on the A fret. And I went, oh, lucked into something unusual there. Something is unusual but attractive and draws you in, I guess, is what you're very happy to find if it occurs of its own volition. I mean, I spend time hunting, on the guitar, sort of putting fingers in weird positions and seeing if anything, and it's rare for anything unusual.
Okay, how many discarded idea tapes are there sitting around?
Don't ask.
Countless, right?
Countless, yeah.
Do you label them or anything? Did you in the past say, oh, this is this idea? Like, how do you even keep track of stuff? Now it's easier with phones.
You'd think so, but it's still very hard. I've still got pieces of music from the 80s that I think maybe I'll use one day. I've got a chorus that's great.
The chorus in search of a verse?
A chorus in search of the rest of the song, but I've never quite found a spot for it. It's really, catchy.
So you've got these songs like Echoes that are incredibly long. These amazing arrangements that just go to these far places.
Yeah.
But on songs that have shorter structures, do you call sections verse, intro, verse, chorus, middle eight? I mean, are these terms that you used to use or that you still
I
use?
use those terms. I'm not always sure that they're being quite accurately or even what they are sometimes, but choruses, bridges and middle eights and stuff like that. Yeah, these are.
I've heard you say in interviews before that if you were playing Comfortably Numb with Nick and then you play with a different drummer, that it's never sounds the same.
Yeah.
That it's different.
Yeah.
Everybody has their own way that they
Yeah.
play things. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, it's one of the great mysteries of music and the art that we have chosen to do. The first version of Comfortably Numb, the known version, is Nick playing. He has his particular way of playing. You get someone else who's brilliant and who studies it. Steve de Stanislaw on my last couple of tours. He's a great drummer, and he studied it, and he will in other songs take weird, strange drum things that I've even played, because on Sorrow I played the drums on pad kit, and there's one where it goes and it just stops, and so he can do anything, and he's got where to leave out the bass drum beat in, but
It still doesn't sound the same,
it's
right?
still great. It's still Comfortably Numb. It's still great, but it's not exactly the same. And it's, as I say, a mystery thing. You can't. There are indefinables in this world, in this life, in this art.
There's a song off of Metal that I always loved.
Down, draws around me, softening the sound. Sleepy time, and I lie with my love by my side, and she's breathing low.
Yeah, nice little acoustic thing, Pillow of Winds.
Yeah, when I hear that, to me that sounds psychedelic. I think of Pink Floyd as having a psychedelic
birth.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, Syd was quite a psychedelic chap.
Talk a little bit about Syd and your relationship.
Well, Syd was. People talk about Syd who knew him with wonder and awe, and he was a fantastic chap who I first knew when we were at an art class together when I was below 11. But I didn't know him then. I'd only know from later on that he was in the same room as me on a Saturday morning at this teacher's training college in Cambridge. But we became pals in our teens. we would sit together. He was at the art school and I was at the college doing modern languages, but they're in the same building, and we would spend our lunch times playing guitar together. And then we hitchhiked around the south of France, got arrested for busking in Saint-Tropez, came back. Syd bought some books in Paris that were illegal in England, The Naked Lunch, and we'd sit in a tent at night and read them by torchlight. Yeah, we got some history going on there. It was, tragically, that Syd drifted away and became another one, which, yeah, as I say, that was a tragic thing. It was very hard to deal with. And, we were all 21, 22 sort of thing. I don't know if we dealt with it as well as we could have or should have done, but maybe as well as we could have.
Bands are complicated.
Yeah.
And relationships are complicated, and all bands come to an end.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah.
I think that to a lot of people that have never been in bands, it's like, yes, some relationships last forever.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, they run their course, and people move on and go on and do their own things. They want to do their own things artistically.
Yeah.
When you first started going out on your own, making your own records, is there a feeling of, boy, I can do anything right now? And what is that like as opposed to being in a band?
There was never a thing where we couldn't do anything we wanted. It's just everyone had to agree. And when you're on your own, you're the only person who has to agree. But the band is a funny thing, as you say. There's a name, Pink Floyd, and it becomes a real object in people's minds throughout the world for many, many years. It means something that kind of exists or existed. In fact, it's just 3 or 4 people who get in a room together and strum guitars and keyboards together. And it's a very approximate, rough way of naming it. It's giving it an actual name. We've all got them. We all, the Beatles are as real as a thing in my mind as Pink Floyd is to other people. But in fact, it's meaningless. It's just a convenient handle for a pop group, a convenient way of saying these people work together. And when they no longer work together, it's gone. And there's no sadness about that or regret. It's just life changes.
Yeah.
And it never was a physical object in the way that none of us can help having it.
Right. And that's something that's probably maybe misunderstood by people that have never been in a band.
Well, it's misunderstood by most of the world
right.
who love this band or that band, or it takes on a solidity of an object which it never was and never could be. It's just a few people working together, making art together.
When you worked with Rick after Pink Floyd, there's some videos up on YouTube of you guys jamming together, a year before he died or so.
Yeah.
When he would come in and play with you, what was that like?
Well, like you said with Nick and the drums on Comfortably Numb, and we talked about how it's the same. It's the same with Rick. He would be there, and I would immediately feel at home with the type of things that he would be playing. They would, make you feel snug, So, and he very much wanted to come out and do that tour in 2006.
And then one day you find 10 years have got behind you. No one told you when to run. You missed the starting gun.
Couldn't have been more pleased, and it was lovely. And then we did the things you've seen that we call the barn sessions, which you did in January and February of 2007. Bit of a mistake because it It was in a barn with huge cracks, and the wind was howling, and the snow was coming in through the cracks, and we were fucking freezing
Right.
half of the time. But it was great fun. It was great loss. And he did do some recording on that solo album as well. Sang some stuff.
On your latest record, there's the jam that's included on that.
Yeah, that was one of the barn jams we did in 2007.
And we talked about it before, but you took his part and you, in Pro Tools, you created...
Well, I just chopped it up
Yep.
in bits, as you do with Pro Tools, moved it along, made a hole, pinched some drums, put them in, and then started writing new chords to have the bits that we call the choruses, the middle eights, and all those things, trying to make it sound consistent. So, I used the same Hammond sound like him, and just sort of faking it a little bit, but at the same time, it's just being respectful to him and trying, you don't want what you're doing to be one thing and then suddenly sound like a completely different band or something.
Okay, so where is that Zoom box that you used to use for some of your lead tones?
There's one in the other room. I've got one at home. We've got, God knows how many we've got of them. We've got a few of them.
Okay, give me some solos that you actually use that on.
The Division Bell, Coming Back to Life.
Okay, yeah.
I think the main solos of that were done on that.
That's one of my favorite solos of yours.
Good.
I love that solo. Do you look for those kind of soaring parts like that, or you just play those things?
That's just what I do. I'm not looking. I can't successfully verbalize what that is, how that works.
When you hit those high notes there at the end of the solo, like the climax of the solo, it's so satisfying.
Yeah. It just feels
Is
like
it satisfying to you when you're playing it?
Of course it is. It's great. But that same little box, I've had them for all these years, 30, 40 years. They are very, very easy to work, and they have a set of effects built in. You can change them, change the drive inside every single thing, then just press the store button and you've got it kept.
Okay, so what's the advantage of doing something like that? Just the expediency, right?
Yeah, the expediency. I'm always intending to redo it, because you're in the studio and I'm working most of the time on my own.
Yeah.
Now, I do the engineering, everything. You just plug into this box, press record, and it takes no seconds at all for you to be up. And I think this could be maybe the guide to where we're going to go. But half the time you then try to use it. Now, it is flawed, but you can run it out through an amp in a room later, re-mic it. You can do a number of things to it, but and that's what we often do. But trying to redo a solo that you've got right is murder.
You can't do it.
It just doesn't happen. And maybe, I should never do that. And I should wait till I get in the room and do the solo then. But, you're thinking, this is a song. This is the point where there should be a solo. I'll just knock something off. And
come on, you had to listen back to that and go, nah, I'm not going to do better. And that's like a perfect solo.
Well, that is something that comes on you later with time.
But a lot of times probably you have the intent of saying, oh, I'll redo that later. Yeah. But then you listen to it a bunch of times, you're like, oh, that's a good solo, right?
Yeah. And I've tried lots of other devices, for doing that sort of thing. Phil will bring me another box gadget and say, this is what people are using nowadays. And I play with it for 5 minutes and go, nah. go back to my ancient old Zoom, which is, I don't know how they're still working.
It's so funny that you read about these things. Like I read about David used this Zoom thing, and then it's like, oh, no, you can't be using that. And then you tell me, oh, I use the Zoom thing. It's like,
Yeah,
oh my God, what?
Maybe 2 solos on this last record were through the Zoom.
Honestly, when it gets as part of the mix and stuff, you don't even think about these things,
No.
right? It can be anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. When I'm listening to it, and I've listened to
you listened to that one we just listened to.
it sounds great.
How would you know?
How would you know? You'd have no idea. Unless you're playing through something like a big muff that has a really unique sound to it. Some type of fuzz where it's like, oh, that's obviously fuzz.
Well, this has got fuzz in it.
It's got fuzz in it.
But it probably fool you.
And does that patch have compression in it too, or no?
Yeah. It's got delays, reverb, compression, fuzz, overdrives. You know, you just press along a button. There's some, like, 9, 12 little things on the front. You just move the arrow along, go to it, press enter, it opens up, and then on the front, all the settings, that thing come up, and you just fiddle with them. And you can then just carry on, go out of it, or you can store it. Or you can store it to another spare, empty place and give it a new name.
Would people be surprised at how much stuff you do on your own, you think, where you're actually engineering? And
I have no idea what other people would think. I mean, yeah, I imagine most people think that you are in a room with a bunch of people a lot more than you actually are.
Yeah.
And while these things are forming, when they're forming and you're in a band like Pink Floyd, where things form organically as part of what you all do together, it's one thing. There are other circumstances where you've got a very clear idea of where things want to be, and you want to be able to show people pretty precisely where you're going with everything, the drums and everything. One of the problems I'm constantly having is I do the most simple drums with a machine. Sometimes I'll do a tom-tom fill for real. But a guy will come in, I say, you know, this is just the roughest possible, simplest possible guide. So you're not let us say, so just do whatever you want, you know, lively it up. And they're going, and I'm going, but that's exactly what I do. They said, that's exactly right.
well, maybe if something's built around that, it has that feel.
Yeah.
The term demoitis, does that mean anything to you?
No, what's demoitis?
Where you have a demo of something and then it's like, it's hard to break away from that, or you have certain sounds.
Yeah.
You'll have parts recorded and it's kind of what you're talking about, where you've recorded something with the intention of replacing it later, but then you listen to it so many times that it just becomes the part. You can't imagine it without it.
Well, I think that happens with everything.
Yes.
And I suspect you take it into a thing with a bunch of people, when they've heard it half a dozen times, they're going the same way. With a song called A Single Spark on this last Up in Strange album.
Yeah.
That was very different. That was all based around a piano riff that I'd done, that Polly hated. She said, can't you change that? And I said, got all grumpy and said, I don't know. Then when we went in the studio, Charlie Andrews said, I've got an idea for how to do that. And he did it, you know, directed a change of thing for that, pretty much all the way through. And it went back into a 6/8 time for the solo at the end, which is what it was originally. And I did grow to love the way that had changed from the demo. So that's one of those rare moments where I've managed to get away from the demoitis. Yeah.
We had talked about Charlie, who produced the last record, and that he didn't really have any knowledge of Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that really true, David?
He claims that he had very little knowledge of it. He did work as an assistant engineer at Abbey Road previously, and had worked on a Roger Waters solo project or something, maybe his Wolf.
But come on, he must have heard stuff on the radio.
I guess it just wasn't a big part of his thinking and the way he looked on music. And it was refreshing for me to have someone who was quite blunt and forthright in his views on we might try to do things. And sometimes they changed a fair bit, sometimes they changed a lot, sometimes hardly at all. Guitar solos aren't common practice amongst younger musicians.
No, what's up with that?
Yeah, well, I mean, and fade outs, he said, why did everything have to fade out? And I said, well, I don't know. We just seem to do that. I mean, for me, that goes back where you think you're leaving a gig and the band is still going away and it's disappearing, and just so it doesn't end. It's subliminally going on in your mind forever. But we did some endings this time. I think I brought him round to my thinking a little bit on guitar solos and on fade outs, and he brought me around to his way of thinking on guitar solos and fade outs.
Well, it's interesting because
there's one song that doesn't have a guitar solo. Good Lord.
Fade outs are something that almost every song when I was growing up faded out.
Yeah.
You almost never hear songs with fade outs.
Yeah. Well, the Beatles ones are fantastic.
The Beatles ones are amazing.
And the fade takes about a second and a half.
Right.
And I'm making them go for 2 minutes, Till you hear that last little ping that you wanted to hear before it disappeared.
Mixing of records up until automation started. Was that done with the band and the engineer, typically with everybody, all hands on deck?
You often had to.
Yeah. And would you guys rehearse moves and things like that?
Yeah. You would rehearse moves. I can tell things like Shine On You Crazy Diamond, all the chord changes and things which are just done on bottles, the chords,
Yeah.
So the chord changes had to have like 6 faders down and up in a millisecond, and things like that. And all the time, the things a drop in on Pro Tools, you just stick it in, you slide the edit point together and go, that's fine, do a little crossfade, takes a second. Just didn't used to be like that. Don't want to bore on with the old days too much, but, you were having to constantly, there'd be a guitar solo and you might want to drop in on it. And if you drop in on it, that's dropped in.
Yes.
The old one is gone.
Gone forever.
And if the guy drops in a millisecond too early, you've then got to drop in a whole beat early or a whole note early and do the same note again. So sometimes you're gradually moving back if you don't get it right. So you want these guys to have very good timing,
They have to have good timing, the engineers.
Yeah, you'd have one finger stuck on the play button while it's already playing and the other one above the record button and go.
Is there any solo that on a song that got clipped that has a punch in on it?
Well, on Dogs, the original solo did get erased.
Okay.
We had the whole first half of the song, then we had a middle whole breakdown bit, which became, all that weird stuff. And that was filled with white 2-inch leader tape. And then eventually the rest of the song was tacked on there while we were thinking about and working out what to do with it. And there was something on the first half that we wanted to erase, and Roger and Nick put it into erase and then forgot it was in erase, and it went right through the
leader tape,
right 2 minutes of white leader tape, and then took away my second guitar solo. Completely erased, gone forever, done. Luckily, as we have also discussed before, I do take mixes home, and I'd taken a rough of that home, so I had to go and recreate it from my rough mix. And as we have also discussed, you never quite feel 100% satisfied, although every note has been learned and rehearsed and played. You think, there's something about the feel that had before that is gone forever.
Does it matter if a guitar is old or new to you?
An electric guitar, much less than an acoustic guitar. I mean, an acoustic guitar that's been bashed around for 30 years, I genuinely believe that all those pieces of different varieties of wood, which have all got different vibrational qualities, and the glue and the slats that hold it all together inside. I think that they gradually become one over years. You know, you get a Martin, I've got one or two brand new Martins, one absolutely beautiful 001 type Martin, and it sounds great, but you pick up a D35 from 1970 or something, and there's something about the age, and the only logic that I can apply to it is that all that work and all that strumming. Sometimes I want to get a new guitar and say to someone in a folk group or something, strum this for a couple of years for me, will you, and then give it back.
When Fender made your, did a copy of your black Strat, would it matter to you whether you played the original one or the copies?
You know, on this tour, on this record,
you're playing those.
I'm playing I mean, I have quite distinct things, and Phil Taylor's 100 times worse than me, and he's measuring every pickup output, every curve of the neck, every piece of wood, what it was made out, what the body's made out of, and if it's a similar weight, and all that. And I think Phil probably drove Fender mad with my requests for perfection, and I didn't want a 20 grand super duper perfect model and a 2 grand one that looks the same. I wanted them to be absolutely perfect, right, and be a reasonable price, and that was a struggle, but we got there.
How has your playing changed over the years?
You tell me. I have no idea.
I'll just say this. When I hear you play live recently, you sound like somebody that plays a lot, that you love playing the guitar. And on the 2 shows that I saw on the last tour, you sounded great. And it sounded like you were playing all the time.
Well, you know, that was, we did 23 gigs. You must have been quite near the end. So I've been playing a bit and doing quite a bit of rehearsing. But I get pretty rusty when I'm not, and I do play a guitar every single day, but it tends to be more strumming with a look towards coming up with something that's a new song or writing something. But playing lead guitar, I don't really do from year to year, and so I have to really get myself in shape. Okay, and it takes a long time, and you think you're in shape long before you are.
So, is there going to be another record?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I'm working on a record.
Okay.
It's in its early stages.
To be out, what, 2026 maybe?
What are we now, 25?
2025?
Yeah, maybe next year, yeah.
Okay.
I hope so.
I look forward to it.
Thank you.
And I look forward to come and see you play live on that tour, David.
Thanks very much, Rick.
I appreciate you spending the time with me today. It's been amazing.
It's been a lot of fun. I told you before, but not on about the Peter Zinoviev, the creator of the Putney and the VCS3. He had a whole room in a shed in his garden, and he could do all these things with it. And I went around there a few times, and he said, I'm going to reduce this down one day, before too long, into a briefcase. And here is the briefcase version that he created. And he brought this into Abbey Road one day, and I started mucking about with it. And there's the very first sequencer that I know of is in this thing. When you've got it set right, you press record and then go. And those 8 notes, less than a second long for the 8. And then you bring in quite fun. The
And
guys seem to like that.
And you put that through a high watt.
Yeah, put it through a high watt.
And
yeah.
what was the reasoning of that? Well, explain that you put all these things.
A lot
through
of
high
those
watts.
things they were just sitting out in the room. The idea of working in the control room was something, we didn't ever take keyboards in the control room and do all that stuff the same way. Everything was out in the room. And these are out in the room. To listen to them, to monitor them, you just stick it into a high watt. And all those, big crunchy notes, which is 3 of these oscillators all tuned to a note, and you press this attack button, it goes boom. I won't bother doing all that. They, to me, sounded much better going through a high watt or something that gives that real punch and is less of that massive hi-fi of the huge spread of the really high and the really low frequencies. It sort of pulls in slightly more mid-range, which gives you more punch.
Cool.
For me.
David, when's the last time you actually plugged in one of these?
Quite a long time ago, but every once in a while we look at this thing and think we should have another go at it. But you've really got to go back and brush up on what all these, you've got all the inputs coming in here and all the outputs going up there, and you put a pin in the right spot. And I never worked out why the pins are different colors, but they are. And so you put an input to an output, and then you can filter it and attack it and envelope shape it and add all this stuff. We had a lot of fun with these things.
That's amazing. That's so cool. That sounds incredible. Okay, we're good.
Thank you.
Excellent. Good.
David, that was phenomenal.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.